Hey everyone, just a quick chat through some of the longer term charts to explain the reasons I've been bearish over the last couple of weeks despite the shorter term charts remaining in uptrends. This is the S&P future weekly chart. A couple of weeks ago on the pullback it left an engulfing candle. That's when it opens above the previous week's close and closes below the previous week's open. These candles are an indication that rallies have reached the exhaustion point, not necessarily a massive short signal, but that bearish candle there left a resistance level at 3108.5, which is the Marabuzo, which is the midpoint between the high and the low. It failed to close above there a couple of weeks ago, and last week the same thing happened, but this was actually a much more bearish candle because it left a shooting star. Shooting stars are sell signals, so my bearish opinion hasn't changed at all. In fact, it's actually probably been magnified by this kind of candle. You'd expect it to roll over from here and just keep going back towards the 200-day moving average, which is around about 2700. The initial bearish idea in the S&P was based on the shorter term daily chart, which I'll show you here. That gap's lower a couple of weeks ago. It left a small island of candles. Island reversals are very bearish patterns. As you can see here, I've circled it. It took a little while, but it rallied back to almost fill the gap and rolled over. I'd expect it to keep going and going and going. These signals normally work. If you look back here, back in February, it was the same pattern which led to the sharp drop lower. The same thing happened in the Nasdaq on the daily chart. I say same, it's similar. It's an abandoned baby pattern. Instead of having a series of candles, it's just one sole candle. Such patterns as this, that's the abandoned baby there. You can see it circled. It actually rallied above the gap level, which I thought might act as resistance, but left a shooting star on the 23rd last week, which was another sell signal. Sold off to close at the low, or just above the low on Friday. So again, I expect that just to keep rolling over from here. The 200-day moving average is way below here at 86.20 something. Continuing with bearish RSI divergence, etc., etc. Looking at the Nasdaq future, quite interestingly, it didn't leave a gap, the same as this one here on the abandoned baby. But quite often that's the case with the futures because they're pretty much continuous, and you don't get the big time difference between the open and the close. But that left an engulfing candle on the daily chart during the week, which we already explained on the weekly from the S&P earlier on. Sign that there's limited further upside, and it broke below its uptrend into Friday's close, which suggests it's going to just keep rolling lower. But more importantly, it made a new high last week, made a new all-time high, but it failed to hold on to that. And you see how the way it's opened here, rallied up to there and closed roughly where it opened. That left a bearish gravestone doji, which is a clear sell signal in the medium term on the weekly chart. So again, I'm happy to be short up here, and I expect that just to roll lower, way above all its moving averages, etc., etc. And similar sort of price action on the weekly charts in the SX5E last couple of weeks ago. It's quite hard being short last couple of weeks because he was getting squeezed a little bit, but these weekly charts were all bearish. This is the SX5E weekly chart. You see it rallied back up to this cluster of moving averages. That's the 150 and the 200 week moving averages. Failed to break above there. Sold off a couple of weeks ago. This candle here is a dark cloud cover candle. That is a clear sell signal, and up. So you can also see now how the 50-week moving average is rolling below the 200. The 100's already crossed below. That shows a longer term reversal in momentum. So I was happy just to stay with my short, even though it actually got squeezed a bit last week. Excuse me. And the looking at the Eurostoxx future VG1, there was a small gap lower on the expiry, but it was only roughly 27 points or so. But same sort of idea. Got up to its cluster of moving averages, the 100, the 200 and the 50-week moving average. That's longer term than the daily chart. These are all big levels up here, and you see how again the 100's rolling below the 200, the 50's about to cross below the 200, which is a death cross longer term if you look at a daily chart normally. another dark cloud cover candle. So I expect this to keep rolling lower from here. Looking at the DAX, this is the DAX cash, the weekly chart. If Bloomberg will let me look at it. There we go. Same price action here, although it did actually manage to break above those moving averages. There was a dark cloud cover a couple of weeks ago, didn't really manage to make a new high the week after that, and last week there was an imperfect shooting star. I say imperfect, I'd prefer to see it close at the lows there, but that's more bearish than bullish, so I can't really see a reason to be long up here in the DAX either, especially as this daily chart left the same pattern as the S&P cash. It gapped higher, traded a little bit, gapped lower, left an island reversal, filled the gap, and what normally happens is it rolls over once the gap's filled, and again you see the bearish divergence in RSI, etc, etc, and similar kind of lack of momentum in most of the sectors as well. I'm still bearish of the SXPP, SXEP, SX7E, which is coming up here. This is the daily chart of the SX7E coming up here, and you can see how it rallied back towards its 200-day, and it's just rolled over since then, closing at the low on Friday. But more importantly, this is the longer term weekly chart of the banks, SX7E. It left a continuation pattern. It's a head and shoulders kind of pattern where it broke through this neckline here, and what normally happens is it comes back to the neckline and then rolls over. So I expect that just to keep on going from here. So that's just a very brief rundown of what I think of the market. No real change for the last 2 weeks, and it's I've just stayed short for the last 2 weeks, and I expect that to become profitable in the next week or two. Have a good week, guys.